Welcome back to yet another episode at Planet Love, and I am your friend and host, Vasudha Madan. So, what are we doing at Planet Love today? See, love has two very important dimensions associated with it. Yeah, so most of us want love in our life mainly for either to have pleasure, or there is yet another dimension to love, uh, what we call happiness. And a higher happiness becomes joy. Yeah, so we are talking about joy versus pleasure today. But am I saying pleasure is not needed? Absolutely not. Yeah. See, life is all about amalgamation of everything in life. Yeah. All the pluses and minuses, what do you call them in a very laymanish language? My personal belief about life is that there is nothing good or bad in life. Yeah, everything that is within me is there within me, right? And the best way to go about it is, instead of labeling it as good or bad, I just label it as mine. Yeah, so if I feel I have committed a mistake, I just label it mine. It is my mistake, and I do what needs to be done about it. Sometimes it could be just bringing a change in my behavior, my mindset, or even if it needs to just go ahead and ask for forgiveness. You know what? It's one of the most difficult things. I feel forgiving is easier than asking for apology. That needs a lot of mental work also. बहुत सारा first emotional work and then mental work. Anyways, I'll talk about that in some other episode. Yeah. So then maybe there's something good about me. So lot of good things are there about me. So I just very lovingly label them also as mine. Yeah. So everything is mine, whether you call it good or bad. So similarly, when it comes to love, yeah, and you know what? On our channel at Planet Love, you know now what's the rule for our soul family? Yeah, love family. For us, love is not just one person. For us, love is you, love is me, love is everything, everyone around us, even our work and the people we work with, right? Yeah, so when it comes to love, yeah, so pleasure is also an important aspect, because I think you do need pleasure, what you call a lower kind of happiness also, and joy, what you call a higher kind of happiness, right? Because both are within you. And you know what? The journey to the highest rung of the ladder starts with the lowest rung of the ladder, right? So you have to go through everything before you finally reach the highest kind of happiness. Yeah. So for me, everything is like just one and the same, right? But for the benefit of understanding, for the benefit of people who I have had discussions with and often differentiate a lot about it. So here is my differentiation about pleasure versus joy. Yeah. So what shall I start with? Shall I start talking about joy first or pleasure? Okay. Okay, we'll talk about pleasure first. Yeah. So like we start with alphabet A before we reach alphabet Z, right? So you have to start with alphabet A to finally start writing the poetry, है ना? for सबसे पहले we'll understand the alphabet, then from alphabet we'll go on to words, from words to writing sentences and paragraphs, and finally turn it into a piece of art and write poetry. Yeah, so similarly let's start with pleasure. Yeah, नहीं pleasure होता क्या है? What exactly is pleasure? Huh? I look at pleasure like a dark chocolate. Yeah, dark chocolate, but the one which is stuck in tooth. Huh? And what happens when something gets stuck in tooth, especially the chocolate? Your tongue inadvertently keeps going there. You are distracted. You are hooked, if I may say, right? So, what happens if it will get stuck there? Ultimately, it will lead to some sort of cavity in your tooth, and it will have its own repercussions, it will have its own consequences. So, yes, you did have a good feeling. You did feel loved, yeah, while having that dark chocolate. But if it remains stuck in your tooth, then yeah, it brings repercussions or consequences in the form of tooth decay, which is sometimes accompanied with the pain, and sometimes it rots to an extent and begins to stink our mouth that we have to undergo a tooth surgery or completely remove that tooth from our body. And you know what? We blame it on the chocolate, but it's not about chocolate, it's about you. You didn't brush, you didn't have that moment of pleasure responsibly. Yeah, you didn't brush later, maybe. Yeah, so, or maybe you had it in excess. Yeah, a piece of chocolate eaten well wouldn't have perhaps caused it. You know what? By simply brushing, yeah, and eating the measured chocolate brings an element of mindfulness when you are showing that love to yourself. So the moment you bring in this mindfulness, it starts to translate from pleasure to happiness. Yeah, so happiness is something which will usually not have such dire consequences as opposed to pleasure is very temporal and momentary, right? I mean, I feel sometimes like, even if I just go by this example of chocolate, it's something which can make us a little more hollow. Yeah, it takes away from you, like it took away the tooth, the rotten tooth, right? And what's gone while having that pleasure, right? Like uh, having those, being a couch potato, watching something mindlessly. Yeah, so it definitely gives you pleasure, that moment, but those important moments are killed when we go on binge watching on Netflix, right? So pleasure, it does give you momentary feeling of high, but the price you pay for it is really high. Yeah, because it, whatever it takes away from you, is something you can never replenish. And it's, I look at it more like drawing water from a dry well. Yeah, and see, it's already a dry well, what will you draw out of it? Yeah, so that is why बस वो chocolate खाते ही वो happiness खत्म हो जाता है, and it brings back again the same bland taste in your mouth. But then when it goes to happiness, and when you bring in that mindfulness, every time you had that chocolate and then you brushed, and you had, even the amount of chocolate you had, even that was mindful. So it it leads to a happier association with chocolate, a longer association with chocolate, and where there are no consequences, right? So that is happiness. But pleasure हो गया, happiness हो गया. Now what next when it comes to happiness. Yeah, so the highest form of happiness, they say, is joy, right? So how is joy different from other things? See, let me give you the example of a plant when it comes to joy. So joy is like planting. Yeah, it's like you put in the seeds today, and it's like making a good investment in stocks or in commodities, whatever you want to invest in. Yeah, so it's like making a good investment into something. uh, and you know what does good investment bring? Good returns. Yeah. High ROI, right? So what is this investment? This is an investment in the form of good karma. And you know what, when you kind of spread, when it comes to joy, it's like you are not just having that chocolate alone. You are, when you have that piece of chocolate and you're like, oh yeah, this is nice. Yeah, and then you feel that, okay, let me share it with others too. Then it becomes something bigger, where more people are involved. Yeah, and let's say if it's for something even better, let's say it is something which brings some really good results, like maybe let me think of a good example instead of chocolate. Yeah, okay, like a plant only. Let's see, a mango tree. Yeah, so I know this mango tree is going to give shade in times to come. And yes, mango is also considered very auspicious in Hinduism and in a lot of other cultures as well. The mango leaves are used, and of course the fruits are also really delicious and healthy also, right? So when you plant that tree, not just thinking about yourself, you will get, because you have planted that tree outside your own house, you will definitely receive the benefits, right? But when you plant it thinking ki, oh, someone else may also benefit from it, then it translates into joy, it translates into something bigger and better. Yeah, so even, and you're not like really doing going out of the way to give to the people here. You have just had that beautiful intention when you planted those seeds, and see, so many people besides you also benefit from it. They really get back, and it's a very natural, auto, free flowing kind of love, where you are nurturing yourself, and but you're nurturing it with such good intentions and with such high vibrations, with unconditionality and with unselfishness, without many boundaries, and not just thinking selfishly. So what happens, the results automatically change. So like they say na, the results, when it especially comes to love, is always hidden, not in the action but in the intention. So is the case with pleasure, happiness and joy. Yeah, so it's called, when you are in that vibe, it becomes like real, I mean love, real wala love. Yeah, so that is joy. And you know what, if you want to taste joy, yeah, you are highly recommended to come and visit one of my joy workshops. Just come to it to taste joy, to feel deeper joy, yeah, to activate the joy within you. Yeah, and I'm sending you lots and lots and lots of love and joy. And please continue to raise the vibe of the planet, because we are at Planet Love. Bye.